Hi there, welcome to my next video. I haven't put this in any particular sequence, so I'm not quite sure where it sits because it's not specific to any aircraft, it's general X's and O's. But I did an update for a video for the C152 showing how I can allocate axes and then create templates, move templates around. And then 2 days later there's an update to X's and O's which makes some changes in those specific areas, so I thought I'd better show those. Also, I've had a number of texts of people who are having difficulty getting X's and O's actually working, and what it appears is they're not following all the videos in sequence, so they've missed some of the hints and tips on the install that you need to do. So I thought I'd go back over that in this as well to stop people getting those kind of frustrations. So let's have a look at what's going on here with axes and O's. Let's bring in various bits and pieces here. Oh, okay. So there's my download here. So I bought mine through Just Flight and I download that, and it's a zip file. The first installation, in here, in that section there, you do get an installation guide, which is here. So first time you're running it, you only have to do this once. You do need to download these .NET profiles. So you've got 2 to bring down. You only need to do that once, and that's dead easy to do. So make sure that's done first. Then you obviously download the zip file wherever you're buying it from, and expand that. And installation is dead simple. Clicking on whichever is the right version view, but I presume it's going to be that one there. First install, you may get a window coming up saying that it's from an unrecognised publisher, and the only button available to you is don't run. But at the very top of the text it says for more information. If you click on there, that gives you the option to run it anyway. So they haven't made it obvious that you can run it. Because I've already got it installed, I'm not going to get that message, so I can't really show you that again. But then the install procedure is dead obvious. You just double click here, and you can't see that it's got a message that says, do you want this unknown publisher to make changes to your device? And you click yes, and you agree, and it installs. But I won't bother doing that because we're already up and running and installed. So that's okay. Next thing is that you really need to run this in administrator mode, and the best way to do that is to create a shortcut somewhere, desktop or something like that, and then if you look at properties, compatibility, you can tick run this program as administrator, so that forces it to run as administrator every time. Of course you get the message saying do you want to run it as administrator. Again, you won't see the message come up, but I've got that there saying do you want it to, and we'll say yes, and that runs. So now I've got X's and O's up and running. Now this is the updated version, so we need to do a couple of bits of housekeeping for the very first time that we bring it in. So in the scripting we need to read the HVARs and BVARs from Microsoft Flight Simulator before we run it. This must be run beforehand, and it doesn't take very long, and it scrapes through and finds all the HTML and B variables that are allocated to it. And that should come up saying any second now that they're collected. And there we are, they're all collected now. So that's done. What we need to do now is to actually run the flight simulator. So bear with me, but I'll probably edit this bit out because you know how long it takes. Okay, so we've now got Microsoft Flight Simulator running and Axis and O's back up and running again. And what we need to do is go into the scripting, because this time we really need to read the LVARs from the sim as well, which is a much quicker process because already pretty well known, so it doesn't have to go hunting for them. So a couple of things that you need to do when you first start this up. Make sure your MIDI devices are enabled if you've got the X-Touch Mini or something similar, and over here in Tools you must enable the Web API. Otherwise you won't be able to talk to the Stream Deck, and quite a few people have missed that little step there. So this is it's with an update you'll remember it, but with the first install you need to go in and sort that out. Okay, so what I would normally do now is I would shut this all down back to desktop again and do a restart just to make sure that everything's picked up. There's a couple of extra things you need to do if you've used some advanced aircraft from and downloaded some profiles. So you'll probably need to map your BVARs back together again, and I've got a TBM one that I've been playing with, so I'm going to activate that profile, and again it says make sure to restart the simulator, so we'll need to do that, and make sure that that is mapped to a specific aircraft. So that TBM should be matched here, and it is, but we'll apply it anyway. But you may not need to do those steps unless you've been using these more advanced profiles. So I'm going to pause that recording and we'll pick it up again. I'm going to close down Microsoft Flight Simulator and then start it all up again to make sure that it catches all the settings. Okay, so we're back in. We've got the Flight Simulator back up and running again. But before we get into showing you the differences, let's have a quick look at documentation. So on the X's and O's weebly.com, there's the download section, and this is the updated manual for the Flight Simulator. So this is the newly updated version, which details all of the new advances that have been added to it. Quite a bit of reading here, and I'm not sure that I still quite get every part of it that's been changed, but we're working on it. There is also a changelog available, which I got. Let's have a look. Where's my changelog gone? There's the changelog, and I've got mine from Just Flight, which is where I bought it from. So I went into the support section, and there's the changelog. So it might be worth having a quick look through some of these here to see what we can do with them. So let's bring in axes and O's. It says direct assignment of variables to axes, and I can't quite remember what was there before, but if we wanted to assign an axis now, we've got the ability to straight away add a variable. I've not found these particularly useful. I've tried adding variables to controls and I'm still not getting it working at the moment, but that seems to be one of the new sections there. We can enter a variable. Before we use these pre-made elements here for the aileron, for the brakes, etc. I said brakes aren't best done this way. Brakes are best done with the simulator event, and use the brakes there, and you'll see that in a previous video what the problem is. So they're the two I generally use. It has got an advanced section here now, in here, Axis Advanced Mode. We'll talk about that in a bit and see how that works. Okay, so let's just make sure that's switched off. We'll look at the advanced mode later. This is where there's been quite a bit of difference here, which is quite useful to me. The ability to edit templates and configurations and to make changes when you've made them. So previously I made assigned axis to the C152, and I decided that in Microsoft Flight Simulator I wouldn't use those pre-built controls anymore in options, the control options, because this doesn't detect the plane you're actually flying with. So if you've got different allocations for different aircraft, it doesn't detect them. So I have taken out the I've left the trim in because those are allocated to buttons on my yoke, and they're the same for every aircraft. But I have taken out, where are you going? Oh, because it's not assigned. I've taken out all of the primary flight control services from here. So apart from the trim, all of the axes, the elevator up and down, everything taken out from here and allocated that to axes and O's. But that was on the 152. I now want to use a template to bring that in here for the G1000 I'm going to fly. So in my templates, I can apply a template here, and I showed you on a previous one how we can export them selectively and then re-import them and rename them. So I want to use one of these. I've got the axis with no trim, I've got axis just for yoke and rudder, and I've got one which does the voice as well. Now I'm not going to need to use the voice here because I've already allocated those, so I just need to bring in those there. But let's have a quick look here at what else we've got. We've got edit templates, which allows us to rename and edit the selected. And if we double click on this one here, you can see what's allocated to it, and you can decide and click which ones you want in, which ones you don't want in. That's quite useful. We can take things out, and we can also change a controller if you've got one slightly different for your profile you're going to use. So we can actually click on that and change that controller, and it brings up a dialog that we can use and replace. So that's quite a useful feature. I haven't used it yet, but it looks like that could be interesting. Okay, so let's cancel that. What I want to do is to bring in the template now just for, I don't need voice, I just need yoke and rudder. So we're going to bring that in here. So we're going to apply that template, just the yoke and rudder, and we're going to merge it in. And again, it still gives you this choice whether you want to bring it in. Now I don't need that one brought in. That was for my carb heat, and there isn't any carb heat on this one, so we can take that out and merge that in. And now if we go back to axes and O's, they're merged in. And I said we'd have a look at the advanced mode. That gives us the ability to set the values here if needed. Now I've discovered that I don't really need to set them. It works perfectly fine, but there are some that you have to adjust the scaling. And if you click on raw here, it brings you up various parts that you can use, and you've got dead zones and things like that. You can bring those up. I've got a dead zone here on my rudder, so if I bring that raw in there, you'll see there's my dead zone size there. That seems to work for me because my rudder pedals aren't quite resetting to 0 every time, and I should be able to adjust that with the mouse there, make that dead zone slightly smaller, and go back in and have a look, and you can see it's changed the values. So that's an interesting one to explore there with the advanced mode. Okay, so there was that major changes here on applying templates and things like that. Let's have a look back at the change log again. So there's the templates. Added the database save button here, so we can click on there immediately to save the database. And that really got me out of trouble because I had an unstable install of axes and O's, and it did mess things up. So I was able to restore the database from the backup and bring it all back again. I must have had a faulty download because it was very unstable, crashing every 2 minutes. But that seems to have sorted itself out now. So that's on that change log there. And it's got it says it's increased the number of automatic backups to 6, but I couldn't find any more than one there, but it was one I wanted. Added the option to lock the GUI to prevent accidental changes. And I can't see where that's gone. Lock assignment controls. So if we click on there, we'll find that everything here is locked, and in fact if you go into any of these, you'll find that it's locked as well, so you can't make any changes unless you unlock it. Same with this one here, we need to go in and unlock that if you're going to make any changes. So that's quite a nice feature there, and of course we can unlock everything in one go. So that's quite a nice safety device. You can't go and accidentally make changes and delete things. Okay, so there's that one there. This is a nice one. Added the option to bring Axes and O's windows to the front, and it's not persistent. So when you reload it next time, it won't do this. But we've got this bring to front option, and that's quite useful when you're developing. That if I click on another window or do some work in Microsoft Flight Simulator, want to see how something's working, then this stays at the front. So if I click on here, make a change, I'm not losing this all the time. So that's quite useful. Otherwise, every time I click on the background here, let's turn that off. Every time I click on there, that's gone. I have to go and bring Axes and O's back into the front again, or use my control tab. So that's quite a nice change there. That one's there. Axes at minimum maximum is set on the GUI in advanced mode. I'll show you. So you see in the advanced mode, and then we've got various bits and pieces added to the FIPS, which again I don't really use, so I haven't really looked too hard at those. Voice recognition, I like having my push to talk on a button. They've got it so you can trigger it with your voice. I'm not so sure about that. I'd like the realism of pressing the button. This voice recognition with a built-in numeric, so that you can set, it'll recognise numbers, so you could, in theory, use it to set things like your squawk code or altitude that you're going with. Not really sure about that one yet either. But there's been some work on the voice recognition, so if you're into voice recognition, have a little explore of that. And now there's some updates to the RPN scripting, so that's quite useful. The mod for the modulo would have been useful a while ago, but I coded my way around that one, but that's there. And added the option to read results of a script calculation using the S prefix. So that's quite nice. You can actually do a calculation and pass it on to another script. That's pretty useful. And a couple of bug fixes down here. And so this is quite a tidy up. So I think the most significant changes for me are in this templates and configurations, because that's what I've been working on recently, and I thought it was worth having a look at that. And I do like this idea of having the Axes and O's window constantly open and pinned. That's quite useful. The other one that it has got is this ability to duplicate selected assignments. So rather, hasn't been a duplicate button, so quite often the menus are very, very similar. Like these ones here are pretty similar. So not quite sure why I've got doubles in here. Oh, I do know why. Some of them are voice activated, and some of them are coming from buttons, to give me the choice of using buttons or to use voice. But when you're duplicating a building, that'd be quite useful to be able to duplicate assignments. So that's quite nice. Does it just work with the Axes ones? No, it says selected. So in theory, I suppose I could duplicate one of those. No, it hasn't worked. Okay, perhaps it is just duplicating these. Yeah, Alon has duplicated, so we'll take one of those out. So perhaps it's these that get duplicated. I've got to work my way through that changelog and have a look and see what happens. But pretty much it's this area here that's been useful for me. And no, don't do that. Do I really want to reassign? It takes ages, so don't ever do that unless you really know what you're doing on that one. So applying other configurations to this aircraft, and it's got configurations and templates, and this has really been an area that's been sorted out and is improving considerably. Okay, so that's it really for this one. That's now there, so I need to save this template really. So we're going to save this current setup as a template, and I'm going to have that as my C172 with axes as well, so I know which one that is, so I can apply that and use that if I need to move that around to other aircraft. Okay, I hope that's been helpful. I'll go back to developing a new aircraft. I'm going to work my way through the Diamond aircraft. There's quite a few of those to play with, and they're quite interesting aircraft. So I'll see you in the next video.